What is going on, comic fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic creator Scott Wilke. Welcome to the show, my friend.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Man, absolutely. You are looking quite festive, I must say.
I'm channeling my inner Periwinkle.
That's right. And we're going to be talking about your comic that's on Kickstarter right now, Periwinkle. But before we jump into that, I got to ask, whenever I bring a creator on, I always want to know, how did you always love comics? Is this kind of something that you stumbled into? Where did your desire to, for comics start?
For sure. Yeah. It probably started. My mom bought me my first one. I don't remember my age, but it was from a grocery store. It was a Superman comic. So from then on, every time we went to the store, I got a new comic. And then I just always loved telling stories. I always joke that I was the one telling my mom bedtime stories when she tucked me in. So anytime I could write a story, tell a story, I was doing that. And then I majored in English writing.
Okay.
Creative writing, and then I did film school. So most useless majors ever. But so yeah, I've written every type of medium imaginable. I've written radio plays, short stories. I've written commercials, all kinds of stuff. Nothing really ever stuck or took. And then I was at like my third or fourth Comic-Con with my wife, walking down Artist Alley and talking to these the writers, because I'm like, you need to be an artist to do comics. But these guys were just like, yeah, I hook up with an artist, I write the scripts. And it just, I don't know, it just clicked at that moment. I'm like, wow, I never thought I could jump into like one of my favorite mediums doing this. So yeah, I went home, I told my wife, I'm like, I think I want to try this. I wrote my first comic, The Legend of Everett Forge. And then, yeah, it's been a whirlwind since then.
So you and your wife were going to Comic Cons, and you're walking down Artist Alley, and you're just like, wait, I can do this.
Exactly. Yeah. Cause I'm like, these are just artists. I mean, these are super talented artists. And I found one of my first writers, and he was like, oh yeah. He's like, I can't even draw a stick figure. I'm like, oh dude, that's me. And then he's like, yeah. And he told me his artist that he had hooked up with. And then it just, this light bulb moment at that Comic-Con. I'm like, wow, okay, I can try this. Let's do it.
See, that's so cool. So like you're into the hobby. Your mom got you in reading comics, by buying comics. And then you and your wife, like it, going to Comic Cons, like that's such a cool experience. Cause like I go to cons with my wife all the time. And I walk down Artist Alley all the time, but I do it to see who can I interview, because I can't write and I can't draw. So I'm like, oh man, who has a dope book that I want to interview? So same kind of thing,
that's
just
awesome.
Not from the writing standpoint.
Yeah. It's an amazing and the people you're going to run into in Artist Alley. I mean, the most diverse group and just the most amazing people, because a lot of them are just indie creators, and that's where the real passion's at, in my opinion. Like these guys, they're doing it, they're paying it out of pocket. They're just telling stories because they love stories. Right. So yeah.
So you said that you kind of got inspired to do it after going to the Comic-Con, talking to artists and writers and things like that. You did your first comic, and how many have you gotten produced, like, or made, created to where we're at now, where we'll talk about Periwinkle in here in just a second?
Yeah, for sure. I have 3 issues of my own comic, The Legend of Everett Forge. The last issue was just such a cluster F. I needed to take a break from it. But I also write for Bad Bug Media under Mike Tiener. So for him, I wrote The Dead End Moon and Undercity Tales.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so 5, and then also Legend of Everett Forge is published under About Time Comics, and that's founded under Lee Giles. And I've written Red Scare for him. It tried to do a Kickstarter. Unfortunately, I think it got buried. So it didn't fund. But so yeah, I got like 6, 7 or so titles out there.
That's awesome. And we'll talk about later at the end of the show where people can follow you and kind of check out some of your other work that you've worked on, and items that you've, messed with. But let's talk about your Kickstarter Periwinkle, because we're talking about it right now. It's live on Kickstarter when this interview's out, and you guys are already funded. So like you just talked about one that was buried, like you guys have, like, people are already invested in this and buying into this. So we're going to talk about that. But what is Periwinkle?
Periwinkle is a dark Christmas comic. It's a one-shot, 80+ pager. You're going to get a full graphic novel out of this. It's about where Krampus and the Belsnickel kill Santa, and half the elves leave with Krampus, half don't. And there's one elf, excuse me, that stays behind. His name's Periwinkle, and he's on a quest for vengeance. So he's got a weapon with him. It's actually the handle part is made out of the North Pole, and then the blade is made out of the runner from Santa's sleigh. And it's been nicknamed by many people, and I've adopted it myself, the Slayer. So I'm gonna steal that. But yeah, he goes on a crusade of vengeance. He's got a hit list, a naughty list, so to speak. And he's just marking one off at a time. And so we catch him right about midway through his hit list.
Okay.
And that's where the story picks up.
That sounds fantastic. Like I'm
Thank you, man.
I'm intrigued. I'm so captivated. I will say this though. I'm gonna be disappointed if I don't get a little of my Dwight Schrute Belschnickel in there for you. If someone isn't impish, I'm gonna be upset. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, we got impish people for sure. Yeah. I love that. That's how people are introduced, because that's how, honestly,
that was how I was introduced to it.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard of Belsnickel, and then I started, like, for Periwinkle, I started digging into the lore of like Christmas and like European nations. It's intense and it's in depth, and I've got like prequels set up, I've got sequels set up, just because it's just a deep well to pull from. But yeah, Dwight, thank the Office for introducing me to Belsnickel.
Right, like that's how did most of us understand that character? It was like, oh, thanks, Dwight Schrute, thanks.
Yeah.
So where did this idea then start for you? Where did you kind of like process this of like, oh man, this would be a cool story to tell?
Yeah, I mean, my mom's from Austria, so I got to hear stories from a very early age about Krampus, and how he would come to visit the naughty kids, and he'd throw them in his satchel and take them away. He had chains that would rattle and drag across the floor. I'm like, it was just so nightmare inducing. It was just stuck like the forefront of my brain. And I'm a huge Christmas buff. My wife is, my mom is, my dad is. So I wanted to write a Christmas story. But all the good ones are taken at this point, thanks to Hallmark. But no, I love revenge stories. Like, that's my MO. That's what I like to write. That's what I like to read. So I'm like, how can I combine all these passions into one? St. Nicholas, Santa, he's had multiple iterations done of him, origin stories, etc. So I wanted to remove him from the equation, and I'm like, well, who's next up? And it's, the elves, Santa's little helpers, our main player in that holiday. So it all just kind of came together one day, kind of a big bang moment. And there it was.
Man. So you can't say you're a Christmas buff and not tell me what's your go-to Christmas movie then.
See, I'm a rom-com fan, so it's Love Actually.
You just won brownie points in my household. So I do a show with my wife on our YouTube channel, and literally that's one of our first Christmas movies that we watch.
Oh,
Love Actually. So
you guys are good people. All right, good.
So we were sitting on our couch last night talking. I'm like, as soon as Thanksgiving's over, we can start watching Christmas movies. And I was like, that means. So I was like, oh, so that means we're gonna watch Love Actually, Jingle All the Way, Santa Claus. I was like, those were like our three.
Hell yeah. Heck
Christmas story.
Dude.
Like, I was like, those are we have like our set 4 or 5 that we have to watch.
For
and
sure.
then if the other ones come in, great, no worries. So
yeah, Christmas Vacation. That's a staple for sure. But yeah, Love Actually, I watch that year round, honestly. That's just such a good, yeah.
It is. We got 2 bearded grown men who are like,
who love Actually.
Ever, and y'all.
Did we just become best friends?
We did. Yeah. It's so funny. Well, and that's what's so great about how, holidays and Christmas and things bring people together. And like, what, are you a diehard Christmas movie fan? Are you it's everyone has like, these are our list of movies and things that we watch. And it's obviously you seem like you would be a person who celebrates Christmas starting in November. You pause for Thanksgiving to give Thanksgiving its due on that day. So intermission, you have first Christmas, and then we're about to enter into second Christmas here.
That's exactly it. Yes, thank you. Yeah, yep. That's awesome.
That's so good. So, Periwinkle, the comic that you've created, holiday theme based, really super intriguing. Let's talk about this Kickstarter a little bit. Or actually, before we talk about the Kickstarter, how did this team come about? Because I saw some of the preview pages on this Kickstarter, and man, the
Yeah.
art is fantastic. Like,
Oh yeah.
how did the creative team come together for this?
Yeah, the art's done by a guy named Arturo Mesa. Shout out to Mike Teener. He's actually the one that discovered him on Instagram, because we went through a couple artists on this one. I had one artist, we got about 5 pages in, and he bailed. I think just the 80 plus pages was too much, too daunting of a task. So yeah, we were looking, we found Arturo, and he's just been nailing it out of the park. Like everything, he just elevates all my ideas to like 100. So yeah, and then Mike Teener got involved early on because I was writing Undercity Tales with him back in 2019.
Okay.
Bad Bug wasn't yet a thing. He was just kind of thinking about it, and he asked me if I had any titles that I had and that I wanted to work on. And I told him about this premise, Krampus killing Santa and everything. And he's like, dude, call me, we got to talk about that. So Mike's been on my butt since 2019 to get that script done. So 2020 was a cluster of a year, but 2021 I finally finished it. So yeah, it's all very serendipitous how everything came together. And then Dave Lentz, he does lettering. He's friends with Mike. And then now we're friends. He's a great guy and just super talented in his craft. But yeah, it's been very fortuitous how everything came together on this one.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you've got a lot of cool rewards and tiers. You've got the digital tier, you've got the paperback, you've got a hardback tier. What are some of your favorite tiers that you have from this campaign?
There's quite a few, because and Mike's been cool enough because he wrote a comic called His Name is Wrath, which is a story about a mech fighting the legions of doom. And it's brand new IP from Bad Bug. He's actually going to introduce it through this Kickstarter. So it's not available anywhere else, just through this Kickstarter. And the price point, you can get an 80-page book in Periwinkle. And then with that additional His Name is Wrath, $35. So that's an impressive amount of entertainment for that price point. So that's one of my favorites. And then the add-ons wise, we didn't want to do prints because I think prints are just, I love prints. I have a collection of them. But we wanted to try something different. So we went with greeting cards and postcards, which is cool because you can send them out if you want. If you want to be selfish, you could, which I'm going to be, you can keep them for yourself. So we've had some really great artists involved. We had Ed Bigford, Danny Julian, Summerdale, and then Terry Mark David doing the postcards. So the postcards are like vintage style.
Okay.
If you're familiar with those Krampus ones from like way back in the day. And then there's some vicious looking ones, cards by like Ed Bigford. He's got Santa's head on a platter, Prancer with, elf skulls on her antlers, just some wicked pieces that we really love. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely have some cool tiers. And a lot of, there's a hardback cover tier, and really people can just get into this wherever they feel like they want to support it. And I think that's really cool because, like you said, you open it up. I love the idea of you're doing a holiday themed book, you're putting in greeting cards. You just said you didn't want to share them, you wanted to keep them, so you're sounding very impish, in my opinion. I'm just saying, you're not being
Dwight's coming for me.
And you just
exactly.
So let's talk about this. You kind of mentioned that you have a world that you want to create with this. You've got some ideas with prequels, and let's dig into this world a little bit more without spoiling the book and with things. So you gave the premise of an elf going out for revenge. Let's dig a little deeper though. Like, what are some of because I know people are intrigued by that. Like, what are some things that, like, story arcs that you're really excited about to be able to tell in this book?
Yeah, I love exploring because there's concept that you're going to get alternate versions of what Santa was really like. So the Bal Snickle has a version. You're going to hear from Krampus. There's another character I haven't introduced yet, but you'll see him soon. He's kind of a surrogate father to Periwinkle. His name's Alabaster. So he's got a different version. Periwinkle, and for Periwinkle, he's got a lot of tragic trauma in his life. So being able to be Santa's little helper was kind of it gave him meaning and purpose to those tragedies. So he's coming to terms with that, and then he's got his own version of Santa. So it's really going to be, I want the audience to kind of figure out who is probably telling most of the truth here.
Yeah.
So that kind of element, and the lore behind Krampus, his relationship with Santa, it's very muddied as far as um, you know, what that looks like, and then as far as his feelings towards him, and you just, I want it to be in a way a little difficult for the reader to put
Yeah.
all the pieces together, because I like
Yeah.
Krampus. I like villains who aren't, I just want to destroy the world for the sake of destroying the world.
Right.
Krampus, at the end of the day, I want the reader to be like, I kind of see where Krampus is coming from with everything.
Yeah.
Same for the Belsnickel. So I think, I'm big into character driven stories.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's hopefully what people will get from this.
Yeah. That's like, I think that's such a cool thing. Like, almost kind of sounds like it's the idea of, you can be, everyone's a hero in their own story, right? Like you're
Exactly.
like, there's a lot of people who think like, who are a villain, who think they're doing great and things like this.
Yep.
And so like what perspective you're getting, I think sounds like it could be a really cool idea to just kind of, with these characters that we're familiar with, but yet we're not, like we're familiar with Santa Claus, at least in American culture. It's been very, even if you're not, even if you're like, we don't celebrate Christmas and stuff, which is fine, props to people who believe their own, celebrate their own ways and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you're familiar with your idea. But I feel like a lot of people are not as familiar with Krampus. I know there was a movie that came out, so people kind of got exposed to it a little bit. We joked about it, like Belsnickel with The Office, a little bit like that. But
yeah,
how did you go about like doing more? Because you said you were a big holiday buff, and your mom used to tell you stories of Krampus. How much research did you kind of go into these lores all across the board to kind of prep for this?
Dude, I went down some deep rabbit holes that I all of 2020 basically was just digging through those rabbit holes. But yeah, I mean, because all intents and purposes, Belsnickel and Krampus, depending on the region of Europe you're from, are interchangeable. So some regions believed in Belsnickel, some regions believed in Krampus. I took some liberties with that, of course, and made them all together. So that alone, and then there's origins beyond that, like the next level, what came before Santa, Krampus, and Belsnickel in like European lore. So there's that I want to explore in a prequel. But I've obviously took some liberties with a lot of it, but a lot of what you're going to find in this book is true to lore, to heritage, what our great grandparents from Europe would have believed or seen, or and all that stuff. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how many holiday movies did you watch to prep for this, like to write?
Just, dude, like you said, I decorated the day after Thanksgiving, or a day after Halloween, excuse me. So we've been watching since then. I think I've knocked out probably over 10.
There's so many. I mean, there's so many good ones that you can't. You don't. December 1st is not enough time to celebrate the holiday.
Thank you. You get it. You totally get it.
You need more. And that's so funny. It's because we're gonna introduce a new holiday tradition, and where we're gonna have people do Elf on the Shelf and stuff like that. We're gonna do Stan Lee in a tree for my girls, so they can get. We're gonna introduce Christmas and comic books. So
that's genius, dude. I love that.
Got the little Stan Lee figures from Target. We're gonna hide him around the house, and when they find him, they get a comic book, and then we'll read the comic at night. So that's
fantastic. I love that.
New holiday tradition for nerds.
I love that, dude. That's awesome. I need to steal that.
Go for it. We're actually, this is the first time people are hearing about it, because we'll probably drop the video right after this interview. So on my YouTube channel,
that's awesome, dude.
Get to hear that and see what kind of how we're gonna go about it with our girls and stuff and celebrate the holiday tradition. But it'll be fun.
That's fantastic, dude. That's genius. Yeah, because I want to get my kid into comics. She looks at the ones I have, but she likes the pictures, of course.
That's where my girls are at 4 and 2, so they're still young. So we're trying to influence a little bit of, hey, here's some fun stuff that you can get into, and so they'll go to the shops and we'll try and pick it out, and we're trying to figure out ways to incorporate it into holiday and stuff like that. So
awesome, dude.
So Kickstarter, we talked about Periwinkle. We're talking about the holiday seasons. What else do you have cooking for you when it comes to writing comics? You got anything else that's coming up, or is this kind of your whole focus right now is Periwinkle? Or
Yeah, right now just Periwinkle, but we got so Dead End Moon that we kickstarted that last year, and now it's out to the backers. So we're
okay,
getting good reviews on that. Finished up on Dead End Moon 2, so we're jumping into production with that. Mike wants us to get into Undercity Tales too, so I'll be getting into that. And then Red Scare, we're going to relaunch that for About Time Comics, and then I think we're even going to start onto issue 2 of Red Scare.
okay,
And then geez, yeah, and then of course I want to get back into Everett Forge, which I'm on issue 4. I got the script like about halfway done, so that's coming. But yeah, 2022 is going to be packed,
nice.
just for me, for Bad Bug. If you follow Bad Bug, they got a ton of titles coming out, new
Okay,
titles added like every month. It's going to be a very action-packed year. So on that Kickstarter, I would definitely add those extra tiers on for the Bad Bug titles,
yeah.
because each of those are going to have a new installment coming out in 2022. So
Oh, nice. So get a little catch up before you
for
get into the
sure.
next season, for sure.
Yep.
So, Will, where can people follow you and find out all the stuff that you're working on, all of the things, follow along with all the things that you're creating?
Yeah, totally. I'm on Instagram, so I'm Scott Wilke 24 on
Okay.
Instagram. I do Twitter. I don't have much of a following, so if you want to follow me, that'd be great. It's Swilke, SWILKE_smooth in Twitter, and then I'm on Facebook, Scott Wilke. I do a lot of stuff on there, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's where
Yeah. And
I'm.
all the links that Scott just mentioned are going to be in the description of this video below. Make sure you go and support Scott so you can follow along. Man, Scott, this has been a lot of fun just talking about comics and Christmas
Christmas,
movies.
exactly. Yeah.
Like, I am so ready. I love this. This is my favorite season. Like, I love
Same.
it. So,
Yep. Same.
uh, now I can start to bust out my Christmas hat like you do for these
Heck yeah.
interviews. It'd be perfect.
There you go, dude.
Oh man. Well, Scott, thank you so much for just taking some
Thank
time to
you.
talk about comics with me. Gang, go support Periwinkle. I'm telling you what, I saw the preview pages. I'm backing this as soon as this video's over. It looks fantastic. I'm excited. You sold me on the interview. Like when we were talking about the premise, I'm like, okay, done. I'm in.
That's awesome. Appreciate
And
that.
if
Man.
y'all aren't in, then you guys are being very impish. So shame on you.
Dwight's coming for you.
He's coming. Watch out.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, with that being said, gang, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.